Yo, yo, we ain't got mills, but we got street dough. Fuck, I gotta pretend for. I'm in a coupe where the roof look like a window. Twisting some endo. My bezels to my thighs, icicles freezing my collar. I'm all about the dollar. Don't know where you from, but in New York City it's hard. So I pop niggas like little dice in the city of God. All the Spanish people love me like they go. Cause I'm Tato in the ghetto when my flow is fuego. You gon' turn into Usher and start making confessions when I run up with the Westin in your studio session. Those niggas told you ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. They talking about Robin Hood, then they talking about the book. Cause I get you placed in a box like a pair of boots. Motherfucker, I'm on your back like a parachute. Everybody love my bars cause my voice is spectacular. That's why all of these little niggas biting like Dracula. Listen, I drinking milk like a cup of coffee. I'm like a bridge about to collapse. You don't wanna come across me. Couldn't walk in my shoes if I gave you my gauze. My lord, these hoes give me more head than balls. You a meathead. You ain't used to holding no cake. You like a broke curl bar. You don't hold no weight. A man is the chef up a classic, nigga, nothing but heat. So I'ma do 350,000 my first week.
Joshua Hood, aka J Hood, born January 30th, 1984. In rap music and in the music industry period, it's a fight to have your art not slip through the cracks of being seen with so many other artists at the same goal of exposure. Sometimes the ones that do slip through the cracks, so to speak, deserve it when they aren't doing what they're supposed to elevate in said industry for whatever reason. But then every so often you have a really talented artist that the world can see has what it takes to go a long way with the music and can understand why things didn't work out. It could be the artist is too young to understand how to make the right moves for the betterment of his career, too young to understand timing and how important it is to find the right time, or bad business done on your behalf that looks good in the moment but doesn't bode well for your future. Or just maybe the talent you thought you had wasn't developed enough all around that could sell in an industry where that's still the most important aspect at the end of the day. These are just a few reasons most artists have growth stunts, but for a plethora of others, this can happen. Today's feature, I think, was a bit of a byproduct of all those, along with what we'll elaborate on today. J Hood in the early 2000s was known for being a rapper that had bars for days, especially for being as young as he was when he first linked up with the legendary LOX Jadakiss, Sheek, Louch, and Styles P. The LOX were also known to be rappers, and J Hood fit right in and was seen as the future for the LOX, who'd already established themselves as a standout group building onto their legend. J Hood was growing fast in the streets and in East Coast rap circles where he'd battle guys like Cassidy back and forth for hours to sharpen his skills. Infatuated with youth, whenever the LOX would bring J Hood around, everyone gravitated to him, wondering who this young guy was with such advanced technique. At some point, the buzz for J Hood releasing an official album was the talk of at least underground hip-hop and some buzz mainstream, but not even a single transpired. He'd become disgruntled with how things were handled, leading to an unfortunate in-house beef. J Hood essentially being shelved, along with a future for the LOX outside the main three. Oh, and of course, the infamous chain dragging that's now synonymous to the name J Hood. What happened? How'd this promising rapper miss his window of rap stardom? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. You can also send a super thanks by clicking the button below. Enjoy the video. J Hood is a rap artist from Newport, North Carolina that grew up in a single mother household and always knew art was something he wanted to pursue. His mother was actually a DJ in nearby Wilmington, and his father owned a big radio station at the time, but left the household early and wasn't in young Joshua's life very often. According to J Hood, he saw his father a handful of times growing up, so had to become a man of the house early. He moved to Mount Vernon and eventually Yonkers, New York at 13 years old after his mother noticed he had a love for music and wanted to become a rapper, thinking at least there he'd have a better chance. They stayed in a shelter for 6 months before getting an apartment. He credits taking a liking to hip-hop through his older brother being a hip-hop head and putting him on to new hip-hop constantly. J-Hood was outside every day figuring out his way through the maze thereafter under names like MC Flames and J Love. Eventually, he tracks down the LOX after he learned they were signed to Bad Boy Records and hung out not too far from where he stayed. They took a liking to J-Hood and brought him along to studio sessions and made him a part of their extension D-Block in 2001, which J-Hood says he helped create. Stunt No1, not staying on a major. Like alluded to earlier, there are certain steps needed to be taken as an artist looking to either break into the music industry or stay around long enough to accomplish what you set out to. One of the missteps of J-Hood early was him becoming impatient with D-Block and Universal for not being able to release an official album. At that time, I can understand the record labels feeling that J-Hood wasn't ready for an album to be rolled out with the budget it takes to ensure that album's success. Yes, he was hot locally after putting out Hood Stripes in 2004 and jumping on D-Block's mighty D-Block 2 Guns Up that initially fueled the buzz and caused it to go nationwide, but he still hadn't put out a single that charted on Billboard as J-Hood the artist that received major fanfare or even made it to #1 on rap shows like 106 & Park and MTV. After receiving an advance for an album from Universal but nothing coming out, he was approached by Koch Records to sign with them as a distribution deal with the prospects of making more from his album and being able to finally release at the pace he'd like. With their help getting him out of his advance and his deal he had with Universal, he signed with Koch along with being signed to his own label On The Grind ENT. He released his debut album a month later, November 2007, and a follow-up sophomore album the next month on the advice of Koch. None received commercial success, but were praised for J-Hood being a promising lyricist who maybe lacked the production and a few other things to become a viable star in rap. Working with a label like Koch is great for established artists that can feed their fans semi-independently because they've already built rapport with those fans through the years of mainstream success. A new artist like J-Hood needed the backing and support of a major label to push his unknown art to the world, so that step to go independent but distributed by Koch was in hindsight the wrong one. Stunt No2, dragging his D-Block chain.
Where the chain at, B? Where the chain at?
About this shit, man.
What? Oh, fuck. You still got it?
Take what? Well, man, you don't even see it on me. You see what I'm gonna do? I'm just walking around like this. Just let it scrape the floor and all that, you know what I mean?
Yo, let me see some.
Take what, nigga?
Ice. Take a close look, homie. This is our life. I walk this shit like a dog and all that. Come on.
As young people, we've all done things we now regret or at some point wish we handled differently. For J-Hood, it was okay that he was frustrated with how the LOX did business with him by having him around for such a long time and never putting his album out, along with accusations of stealing money from him after his house burned down and supposedly Universal wrote a $60,000 check on his behalf to help out, which he never received. And I get that he may have felt on fire in the streets at the time for him to be taken more seriously in the form of an album. I also understand that from the outside looking in, I honestly think J-Hood may have been misguided on that and he wasn't hot enough to be thinking of a major label album at the time. He says that when Sheek Louch had his album rolled out, a lot of attention was paid to it, which wasn't the case for him. But Sheek, at the time, was part of a legendary group that released arguably 2 classics by that time, and J-Hood again hadn't made a run in rap yet, so shouldn't have expected the same energy. Rumor had it that Sheek had taken the D-Block chain back from J-Hood, which was false because J-Hood actually bought his own D-Block chain and still possessed it throughout the beef with the LOX. One day on camera, he pulled it out and imitates walking a dog with it that went viral and was seen as the greatest disrespect to the LOX. The result of that was an unspoken blackball of J-Hood, where not many industry significant people would work with him, and from there, his music faded into the distance. Stunt number 3 lacks star power. Not to be overly critical of J Hood, because I think he's a dope artist with an interesting perspective on life, especially when you hear him speak on his podcast today. But everyone, because they're in an industry where other stars are doing the same job, mean they can be stars too. It's not life. Sometimes the role carved out for you was to be just who you are, so try and be the best at it. J Hood outside mixtapes filled with songs with no hooks, bridges, melody, or great production will only serve one purpose at the end of the day. Show that you are a good rapper, but it doesn't showcase your true star or that you actually have one that should be pedestaled above anyone else's. Add that to losing the LOX cosign because of the beef and him attempting to embarrass them, and it was almost certain J Hood would become a casualty. Without the power to make great songs, then great full bodies of work in music, and not just for the block to hear, made it a surety J Hood wouldn't last. He released more mixtapes leading into independent albums throughout the 2010s, but none managed to capitalize on the potential he once had, mainly because he just wasn't the star some thought, and that's fine. All in all, I think J Hood's story is important in hip-hop because it shows how you can get in your own way sometimes, along with not having great business done on your behalf that causes you not to reach the heights you could have. Still a respected artist, just not the star he was thought to be. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.